What if everything you've been told about aging is wrong? What if the story we've been handed about decline, limitation, and gradual withdrawal from life's possibilities is not just incomplete, but dangerously misleading? I'm about to share something with you that might fundamentally shift how you see your future. And it's based on decades of research that's been quietly revolutionizing our understanding of what it means to grow older in the modern world. Just last week, I met a woman named Eleanor at a coffee shop. She was 83 years old, working on her laptop, planning her next photography expedition to Iceland. When I expressed amazement at her adventurous spirit, she smiled and said something that stopped me in my tracks. "Young man, I didn't become myself until I turned 70. Everything before that was just practice." Eleanor isn't an anomaly or some genetic miracle. She's part of a growing movement of people who are discovering that the traditional narrative about aging simply doesn't match the reality of what's possible when we approach our later years with the right mindset, knowledge, and strategies. The truth about aging is far more nuanced, hopeful, and empowering than what most of us have been led to believe. While it's true that certain physical changes are inevitable as we age, the idea that our 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond must be characterized by steady decline, diminishing possibilities, and increasing irrelevance is not only false, it's actively harmful. This outdated narrative has become a self-fulfilling prophecy for millions of people who unnecessarily limit their dreams, their growth, and their potential simply because they've accepted someone else's story about what aging looks like. Today, we're going to explore the scientific truth about aging, the real possibilities that await you in your later years, and why your best chapters might indeed still be unwritten. If you're someone who refuses to accept that your most meaningful, exciting, and fulfilling days are behind you, then this conversation is for you. And if you're ready to challenge everything you thought you knew about growing older, I invite you to hit that subscribe button right now, because we're about to embark on a journey that could change not just how you think about aging, but how you experience every day moving forward. The first truth that needs to be addressed is the myth of cognitive decline. We've been conditioned to believe that forgetting where we put our keys or struggling to remember a name is the beginning of an inevitable slide toward mental deterioration. This fear is so pervasive that many people in their 50s and 60s live in constant anxiety about their mental faculties, interpreting every minor memory lapse as evidence of impending decline. But here's what the latest neuroscience research reveals. The aging brain doesn't just decline, it actually develops new strengths and capabilities that younger brains don't possess. Dr. Gene Cohen, a pioneering researcher in the field of aging and creativity, discovered that the brain undergoes what he called neuroplasticity plus as we age. While we might process information slightly more slowly in some areas, we gain something far more valuable: the ability to see patterns, make connections, and access wisdom that comes only from accumulated experience. This is why many of the world's greatest achievements in literature, art, science, and leadership come from people in their later years. They're not succeeding despite their age, they're succeeding because of the unique cognitive gifts that come with a mature brain. Consider the story of Laura Ingalls Wilder, who didn't publish her first Little House book until she was 6, or Frank McCourt, who wrote his Pulitzer Prize-winning memoir Angela's Ashes at age 66. These weren't people clinging to past glory or desperately trying to recapture their youth. These were individuals who had finally reached the point in their cognitive development where they could access and express the depth of wisdom that only comes with lived experience. The research shows that while younger brains excel at processing, speed, and working memory, older brains develop what scientists call crystallized intelligence, the ability to use accumulated knowledge and experience in ways that are often more sophisticated and nuanced than what younger minds can achieve. This isn't consolation prize thinking. This is recognizing that the aging brain doesn't just lose capabilities, it gains new ones that can be incredibly powerful when properly understood and utilized. The second truth challenges our assumptions about physical vitality and capability. Yes, our bodies change as we age, but the degree to which these changes limit us depends far more on our lifestyle choices, mindset, and approach to physical wellness than on the simple passage of time. We've been told to expect inevitable frailty, but research in exercise physiology and geriatric medicine tells a very different story. Dr. Walter Bortze, a Stanford physician and researcher who has studied aging for over 4 decades, makes a startling claim: most of what we attribute to aging is actually the result of disuse. His research suggests that up to 70% of age-related decline is not inevitable biological aging, but rather the consequence of sedentary living, poor nutrition, social isolation, and mental stagnation. This means that the majority of what we fear about getting older is actually within our control to prevent or reverse. Take the inspiring example of Charles Eugster, who didn't start serious athletic training until he was 87 years old. By his 90s, he was setting world records in rowing and sprinting. Or consider Ida Keeling, who began running at age 67 and continued setting records well into her hundreds. These aren't superhuman individuals with special genetics. They're ordinary people who refuse to accept the limitations that society told them were inevitable. But this isn't just about extreme athletic achievement. It's about understanding that strength, flexibility, balance, and endurance can be maintained and even improved well into advanced age. When we approach physical wellness with intention and consistency, the key is shifting from a mindset of protection and limitation to one of capability and growth. This doesn't mean ignoring real health conditions or taking unnecessary risks, but rather working with qualified professionals to discover what your body is capable of achieving at any age. The third truth revolves around the profound opportunities for emotional and psychological growth that come uniquely with aging. Contrary to the stereotype of older adults becoming set in their ways, rigid, and resistant to change, research in developmental psychology shows that many people actually become more emotionally intelligent, more empathetic, and more psychologically flexible as they age. Psychologist Erik Erikson identified what he called generativity as a key developmental task of later life, the desire to contribute to future generations and leave a meaningful legacy. This isn't about becoming a grandparent, though that can certainly be part of it. It's about reaching a point in psychological development where we're motivated less by personal achievement and more by the desire to make a positive impact on the world around us. This shift often brings a sense of purpose and fulfillment that many people never experienced in their career-focused younger years. It's why so many individuals report feeling more authentic, more at peace with themselves, and more clear about what truly matters as they age. The psychological research term for this is socio-emotional selectivity theory, which describes how older adults become more selective about their goals and relationships, focusing on what brings genuine meaning and satisfaction rather than chasing external validation or trying to please everyone. This emotional maturity often translates into deeper HR, more satisfying relationships. Older adults tend to be better at conflict resolution, more appreciative of their close relationships, and more skilled at letting go of toxic connections that drain their energy. They've learned through experience what works and what doesn't, and they have the confidence to make choices based on their authentic values rather than social expectations. The fourth truth addresses one of the most persistent myths about aging: the idea that creativity and innovation are the province of youth. This belief is so ingrained in our culture that many people unconsciously begin to see themselves as less creative, less innovative, and less capable of original thinking as they age. But the evidence tells a remarkably different story. Research by psychologist Dean Keith Simonton shows that while certain types of creativity might peak in different decades, many forms of creative expression actually improve with age. What changes is not the capacity for creativity, but the type of creativity that emerges. Younger creativity tends to be more revolutionary, breaking rules and challenging conventions. Older creativity tends to be more integrative, synthesizing lifetime experiences and knowledge in ways that create profound insights and lasting works of art, literature, and innovation. Grandma Moses didn't start painting until she was 78 and continued creating masterpieces until she was 101. Giuseppe Verdi composed Otello at 74 and Falstaff at 79. Frank Lloyd Wright designed Guggenheim Museum at 76. These aren't exceptions to the rule, they're examples of a broader truth about human creativity that extends far beyond famous artists and architects. The reason creativity can flourish with age is that it builds on what researchers call divergent thinking, the ability to see connections between seemingly unrelated concepts. This capacity actually increases with life experience because older adults have more knowledge, more varied experiences, and more complex mental models to draw from. They're not trying to prove themselves or follow conventional paths. They're free to explore ideas that genuinely interest them and express perspectives that can only come from having lived through decades of human experience. We're at the heart of our exploration now, and I hope you're beginning to see how radically different the truth about aging is from the stories we've been told. If this resonates with you, if you're feeling a sense of possibility and excitement about what lies ahead, would you take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel? We're building a community of people who refuse to accept limiting beliefs about aging, and your support helps us reach others who are ready to embrace the full potential of their later years. The fifth truth challenges our economic assumptions about aging and productivity. We've been conditioned to think of aging as an economic burden, both personally and societally. The narrative suggests that we become less productive, less valuable, and increasingly dependent as we age. But this perspective ignores the enormous economic and social contributions that older adults make, as well as the unique advantages that come with experience, wisdom, and freedom from certain life pressures. Many of today's most successful entrepreneurs started their ventures after age 50. Ray Kroc was 52 when he founded McDonald's. Colonel Sanders was 62 when he began franchising KFC. Laura Ingalls Wilder was in her 60s when she achieved her greatest literary success. These individuals weren't trying to recapture their youth or prove they could still compete with younger people. They were leveraging the unique advantages that come with maturity, deep knowledge of their industries, extensive networks of relationships, financial resources accumulated over decades, and the confidence that that comes from having weathered life's ups and downs. The modern economy increasingly values what older workers bring to the table. Institutional knowledge, emotional intelligence, mentoring abilities, and perspective that can only come from experience. Many companies are discovering that age-diverse teams actually outperform homogeneous younger teams because they bring different thinking styles, different problem-solving approaches, and different perspectives to complex challenges. But this isn't just about traditional employment. The rise of the gig economy, online businesses, consulting opportunities, and creative entrepreneurship has created unprecedented opportunities for older adults to contribute economically in ways that suit their lifestyle, interests, and circumstances. Many people are discovering that their post-traditional career years can be their most financially rewarding, not despite their age, but because of the unique value they can provide. The sixth truth addresses the social and relational aspects of aging. We're often told that aging inevitably leads to isolation, loneliness, and social irrelevance. While it's true that some older adults do experience social isolation, this is not an inevitable consequence of aging. It's often the result of societal attitudes, practical barriers, and personal choices that can be addressed and changed. Research consistently shows that older adults who maintain strong social connections have better physical health, cognitive function, and overall life satisfaction than those who become isolated. But here's what's particularly interesting. The quality of relationships tends to improve with age. Older adults are more likely to have close friendships based on genuine compatibility and shared values rather than convenience or circumstance. They're more skilled at maintaining long-distance relationships, more appreciative of time spent with loved ones, and more likely to invest in relationships that truly matter to them. Many older adults also discover new communities and form new friendships around shared interests, volunteer activities, or life circumstances. The stereotype of older adults being stuck in old patterns and unable to form new relationships simply doesn't match the reality of how many people experience their later years. In fact, many report that their friendships in their 60s, 70s, and 80s are deeper and more meaningful than friendships they had in their younger years. The rise of technology has also created new opportunities for social connection that didn't exist for previous generations of older adults. Online communities, video calling, social media platforms designed for mature users, and digital tools for shared interests have made it easier than ever for older adults to maintain existing relationships and form new ones, regardless of geographic limitations or physical mobility challenges. The seventh truth tackles the spiritual and existential dimensions of aging. Rather than be in a time of increasing despair about mortality and meaning, many people find that aging brings a deeper sense of spiritual connection, philosophical insight, and existential peace. This isn't necessarily about religious faith, though that can certainly be part of it. It's about the perspective that comes from having lived through multiple decades of human experience and having wrestled with life's fundamental questions. Carl Jung, the renowned psychologist, wrote extensively about what he called the afternoon of life, describing it as a time when people naturally turn from external achievement toward internal meaning, from acquisition toward appreciation, from doing toward being. This isn't resignation or withdrawal from life. It's a deepening engagement with what matters most. Many older adults report a sense of freedom that comes from no longer needing to prove themselves or meet others' expectations. They've learned to distinguish between what they can control and what they cannot, between what truly matters and what merely seems urgent. This perspective often brings a sense of peace and acceptance that younger people, still caught up in the striving and uncertainty of building their lives, haven't yet achieved. This doesn't mean that older adults don't face existential challenges or struggle with questions of meaning and purpose, but they often approach these challenges with greater equanimity and wisdom than younger people facing similar questions. They've developed what researchers call post-traumatic growth, the ability to find meaning and strength in difficult experiences rather than being permanently diminished by them. The eighth and final truth is perhaps the most important. The recognition that aging is not something that happens to you, but something you actively participate in creating. How you age is not predetermined by your genes, your family history, or your past experiences. While these factors certainly influence your trajectory, the choices you make every day about how you think, how you live, and how you engage with the world have enormous power to shape your aging experience. This is where the concept of successful aging becomes relevant. Researchers have identified that people who age most successfully share certain characteristics. They maintain a sense of purpose and meaning. They stay physically and mentally active. They cultivate strong relationships. They adapt to change with resilience. And they maintain an optimistic outlook about their future possibilities. But here's the crucial point. These characteristics aren't personality traits that you either have or don't have. They're skills and perspectives that can be developed at any age. You can begin cultivating purpose today. You can start building stronger relationships this week. You can challenge yourself mentally and physically starting right now. You can develop resilience and optimism through practice and intention. This means that regardless of your current age, health status, or life circumstances, you have significant power to influence how your story unfolds. You're not a passive victim of aging. You're an active author of your own experience. This perspective is incredibly empowering because it means that your best years aren't necessarily behind you. They might very well still be ahead, waiting for you to create them. The implications of these truths extend far beyond individual experience. When we understand that aging can be a time of continued growth, contribution, and fulfillment, we begin to see older adults not as burdens to be managed, but as resources to be valued. We recognize that the wisdom, experience, and perspective that come with age are not consolation prizes, but genuine advantages that our society desperately needs. Think about the challenges facing our world today: climate change, social inequality, political polarization, technological disruption, economic uncertainty. These are complex problems that require not just energy and innovation, but also wisdom, perspective, and the kind of long-term thinking that often comes with having lived through multiple cycles of change and challenge. The older adults in our communities aren't just observers of these challenges, they're potential contributors to solutions, bringing perspectives and insights that younger generations might not have access to. This shift in thinking about aging also has profound implications for how we plan our own lives. If we truly believe that our best years might still be ahead, we approach decisions about career transitions, relationships, health, and personal growth very differently. We're more likely to invest in learning new skills, more willing to take meaningful risks, more open to changing course when something isn't working, and more committed to taking care of our physical and mental health as investments in our future, rather than just maintenance of our present. As we reach the end of our exploration together, I want to challenge you to examine your own beliefs and assumptions about aging? What stories have you accepted about what's possible or impossible at your age? What dreams have you set aside because you thought you were too old? What opportunities have you dismissed because they didn't fit the conventional narrative about aging? The truth about aging is that it's far more variable, hopeful, and full of possibility than most of us have been led to believe. Your 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond don't have to be about managing decline and accepting limitations. They can be about discovering new strengths, exploring uncharted territories, contributing to causes that matter to you, and becoming more fully yourself than you've ever been before. Eleanor, the 83-year-old photographer I mentioned at the beginning, understood something profound. She didn't become herself until she turned 70, because it took that long to shed the expectations, fears, and limitations that had been placed on her by society and by her own internalized beliefs about aging. Once she let go of the story that her best years were behind her, she was free to discover what was actually possible. The same freedom is available to you. The same possibilities are waiting for you. The same potential for growth, contribution, and fulfillment that has always existed within you doesn't disappear because you've reached a certain age. It often becomes more accessible because you finally have the wisdom, resources, and freedom to pursue what truly matters to you. If this conversation has shifted something in your thinking, if you're feeling more hopeful about your future, if you're beginning to see new possibilities for your life, I want to ask you to do something important. Subscribe to this channel and hit that like button, not just to support our work, but as a declaration of your commitment to embracing the full potential of your years ahead. We're building a community of people who refuse to accept limiting beliefs about aging, who are committed to supporting each other in living fully regardless of our age, and who are proving every day that our best years don't have to be behind us. Thank you for joining me on this journey of discovery. Remember, the truth about aging isn't just an intellectual concept. It's a lived reality that you have the power to create. Starting today, your story is still being written, and the most exciting chapters might be the ones that haven't been written yet.